My mom, 70 years old, lives down the street from me, 44 years old, and my two daughters, 19 years old and 17 years old, although the 19-year-old daughter is several states away in college at the moment. I have a pretty serious medical condition that flares up and could become dangerous if medications don't work quickly. My mom is always over at my house using my laundry room, joining us for meals, watching my TV subscriptions, and using my large kitchen. I never minded her coming over. However, I've noticed for years that our relationship has always been for her benefit. In December, my mom was over using my kitchen to bake treats for my brother and his kids. I had been homesick for over a week with my condition when I suddenly started feeling very sick. I called my specialist, and she told me to get to the emergency department ASAP. I was in absolute agony and couldn't drive. Literally curled up in the fetal position, I shoved my slippers on and asked my mom to please take me to the hospital. She drove me to the ED, I checked in, and we sat in the waiting room to wait my turn to be seen. My mom immediately started getting agitated, tried to convince me to leave, and complained loudly about the wait. I was in the fetal position in my chair the entire time. Finally, she just left, leaving me to fend for myself waiting to be seen in the ED. I was finally seen and was immediately admitted to the ICU, where I stayed for over a week. She only visited me when my 19-year-old got home from college for break, and she had to come to the hospital to see her because my 19-year-old wouldn't leave my side. Rest assured, I was very sick. To resolve my chronic condition, my specialist said I had to have a major surgery once I was fully healed from the December incident. I scheduled surgery for last week. My 19-year-old was back in school, and my 17-year-old was too young to be my support person. My mom insisted on taking me for surgery and being my support person. Stupidly, I allowed her. In retrospect, I should have asked one of my close girlfriends. My mom brought me to the hospital, but then refused to come back to the pre-op area because it was too far to walk. Instead, she sat in the surgical waiting room while I waited in the scary pre-op area all alone. Thank God, my nurses were angels. Anyway, after a 3.5-hour surgery, I woke up in the recovery area to a nurse telling me that my mom left me and went home. She apologized profusely and asked if there was anyone else she could call. I couldn't give her a number, as my mom had my cell phone with my belongings and I didn't have numbers memorized. Sadly, I only knew hers by heart, so I endured recovery alone. I was brought to my room alone. My mom had left my belongings with the hospital, so I got my phone back and called my friends and daughters the next day. I was in the hospital for 5 days, and my mom never came to see me. I didn't even ask her for a ride home. Instead, I lied about my 17-year-old's age, and they let her pick me up and bring me home. Once I got home, I read the notes in my online chart, and apparently, my mom was throwing a fit in the waiting room about my surgery taking too long for her and that she didn't like to drive at night. That's absurd, because there are scores of people, my 17-year-old, my ex, my brother, my sister-in-law, my niece, my nephew, my nephew's wife, and people from church, who would have gladly picked her up and brought her home. She didn't ask any of them. Now, Mom keeps texting me to ask how I'm doing, but she has not come to see me. I responded civilly, albeit briefly at first, but I finally just responded with, "Please just stop." I haven't heard from her since. Keep in mind that my mom has always treated me as a bit of a servant. It didn't occur to me until years of therapy, but it's true. I was adopted, and I was, frankly, treated like a maid growing up. Last summer, my mom had a total knee replacement, and I sat in that exact same surgical waiting room for her, went to pre-op and post-op, brought her to her room, slept at the hospital that night, and brought her home to my house for 6 weeks, where I made all her food, bathed her, coordinated her PT, etc. In October, she called me incessantly while in a work meeting to pick her up and bring her to the ED because her blood work was off, which I immediately did even though I was an hour away. So it isn't like she's getting back at me for something. I just feel like giving up and ceasing communication with her at this point. Is that too drastic a response? I feel like any conversation I try to have would just be met with defensiveness and would be futile. That would make me feel even worse than I do now. Or should I give her one last shot at rectifying it? I feel so guilty, but also so tired of caring more about her than she does about me. I think having daughters of my own has really opened my eyes because I would never leave their sides. I'd wait in broken glass shards if I had to, but I'd never abandon my girls in a situation like that. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I give you permission to leave her behind, guilt-free. I'm like you, always taking care of people, only to find that they lose it when I ask to be supported in turn. Learning how to match energies and not overextend myself for jerks has brought a lot more peace and balance. People who serve the wrong people will be punished with more service. Comment 2. I would go no contact and change the locks on your house, the passwords to your online services, and basically anything else that she has been using to take advantage of you. She's a user. Stop being her doormat. Get healthy and show your daughters what a healthy relationship looks like with them, not that narcissist you call an adoptive mom. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been a busy few months since then, and I've got quite the update for you all. After my surgery, I was pretty much on my own. My mom's lack of support was nothing new, but this time it really hit me hard. I've always known our relationship was one-sided, but the surgery incident was the last straw. I've been reflecting a lot on our past, and it's clear that she's always put her needs above mine, even when I was a kid. I remember when I was about 10, I had won a school award, and I was so excited for her to come to the ceremony. She promised she would be there, but at the last minute she bailed to go to some social event with her friends. I sat there, watching other kids with their proud parents, feeling completely forgotten. That pattern continued into my adulthood, with her expecting me to drop everything for her, like when she had her knee replacement last summer. Since I've been home from the hospital, my 17-year-old has been an absolute angel, helping me out around the house and making sure I'm comfortable. My 19-year-old has been calling daily from college, offering her support and love. It's been tough, but their care has made it bearable. Now, here's where things get really interesting. About a month ago, my brother came over to check on me. He's always been the golden child, and my mom dotes on him and his kids. But this time, he was different. He was genuinely concerned about me, which was a surprise. We started talking, and he confessed that he's been seeing a therapist and realizing how our mom's behavior has affected us both. He told me that he's been feeling guilty for how much our mom favors him and his family. He had no idea how she treated me during my medical emergencies. He was shocked and apologized for not being there for me. We had a long, emotional conversation, and it felt like we were finally connecting as siblings. But wait, it gets juicier. My brother revealed that he had overheard a conversation between our mom and her friend that shook him to the core. Apparently, our mom had been bragging about how she had manipulated me into taking care of her after her surgery, saying she didn't really need that much help, but enjoyed the attention and free service. My brother was disgusted by this and decided he needed to tell me. I was furious and heartbroken. All those years of feeling like I wasn't enough, it was all just a game to her. I confronted my mom over the phone, and she tried to deny it at first. But when I told her my brother had overheard her, she went silent. Then, she tried to justify her actions by saying she was lonely and wanted to feel needed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like she didn't understand the gravity of her actions at all. I told her I needed space and that I couldn't keep being her caretaker at the expense of my own health and well-being. Things have been tense since that call. My mom has been trying to reach out, sending messages and leaving voicemails, but I haven't responded. My brother has been supportive, and we've been getting closer, which is one good thing that's come out of this mess. Then, just last week, I got a call from my ex-husband. We've been on decent terms since our divorce, mainly for our daughter's sake. He said he had something important to tell me and asked if we could meet for coffee. Curious, I agreed. We met up, and he was visibly nervous. After some small talk, he dropped a bombshell. He told me that years ago, when we were still married, my mom had come to him with a proposition. She offered him a significant amount of money to leave me, saying that I was a burden, and she wanted me to move back in with her so she could take care of me. He was appalled, and of course refused. He never told me because he didn't want to hurt me. But now, with everything that's happened, he thought I should know. I sat there, stunned. My own mother wanted to pay my husband to leave me. It was like all the pieces of a puzzle were falling into place. But it was a picture I never wanted to see. I thanked my ex for telling me and walked back home in a daze. I've been trying to process all of this, and it's been tough. My daughters have been my rock, and my brother has been checking in on me every day. My boyfriend installs a tracker on my phone to stop me from going to a concert with friends, but I leave the phone behind, and when I return, he accuses me of cheating. My 31-year-old boyfriend has pretty extreme trust issues and insecurities. He's had these for a while because his ex cheated on him, and he hasn't been able to let go of the fear that subsequent partners will do the same. We've been dating for a year and a half, and we live together. Recently, I asked him if he'd be all right with me going to a concert in a city about an hour away with some new female friends I've made. He says he's uncomfortable with this for a few reasons. Here they are. 1. Once earlier in our relationship, I was out with my best female friend at a karaoke bar and got way too drunk and briefly blacked out. Nothing happened. There was no cheating or flirting, and we made it home safely in an Uber. I still felt terrible because that's not the person I want to be. So after that incident, I examined my relationship with alcohol and have drastically reduced my intake. On average, I currently have 0 to 2 drinks per month, and this has been the pattern for at least 6 months. He believes I will go to the concert and get blacked out drunk and cheat on him. 2. We met at a concert. I was there by myself and he was with friends. We connected and ended up making out that night and then started going on dates after that happened. He believes I will do the same thing again if I'm at a concert without him. My argument is that I was single for 4 years at that point and didn't cause any harm by kissing him during that evening. I don't have a history of cheating. I asked him if he wants to come with me. I'd love for him to be there, but he can't make it work with his schedule, so he doesn't want me to go. He says by going to a concert with these female friends, my friendships are escalating into something else that he's not comfortable with. I will note he's planning a bachelor party in Vegas with his friends right now, but he says that isn't a double standard because his friends are known to be faithful, and he doesn't know if mine are. Right now, it's not even about the concert for me. I feel so shitty that after the whole time we've been together, there's still such a lack of trust. I don't know what I could ever do to make him comfortable, but I feel like I'm walking on eggshells and not doing the things I want to do in life because of how it makes him feel. Is this salvageable? Can a relationship exist without trust? He says he wants to marry me, but how can he if he doesn't trust me? Side note, I recently got an ear cartilage piercing, and he said he had to convince himself I wasn't just doing it for attention. I have a hard time believing anyone gives a shoot about my ear piercing. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Stop asking permission if he would be okay with it. You're just giving him an opportunity to say no that he isn't entitled to. I seriously question whether his ex actually cheated on him, because that sounds like a story that these types of controlling dudes really like to tell to explain their unacceptable behavior, and half the time it isn't even true. Comment 2. This isn't about trust, it's about control. How insane is someone to say going to a concert with your friends is escalating the relationship to a level he isn't comfortable with? He said that, and you didn't laugh in his face? Mistake number 1, not shutting it down right there. Escalating a friendship by doing normal friend things. This dude sucks. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been a week since I posted about my boyfriend's trust issues and things have only gotten more intense. I thought I'd give you an update because honestly, I'm at my wit's end and I need to vent. So after our last conversation about the concert, things seemed to calm down a bit. He apologized for overreacting, and I thought we had reached a compromise. I agreed to check in with him during the concert, and he seemed okay with that. But then, 2 days before the concert, he dropped a news on me. He confessed that he had installed a tracking app on my phone a few months ago. He said he did it because he couldn't shake the feeling that I was up to something whenever I wasn't with him. I was floored. I had no idea he'd been monitoring my every move. I felt so violated and angry. I couldn't believe that the man I loved would go behind my back like that. I confronted him about it, and we had a huge fight. He tried to justify his actions by bringing up the time I blacked out at the karaoke bar, saying he just wanted to make sure I was safe. But I wasn't buying it. It was clear that this was about his insecurities, not my safety. In the heat of the argument, he also admitted that he had been talking to his ex, the one who cheated on him. He said they were just catching up as friends, but it felt like a slap in the face. Here he was, accusing me of potentially cheating, while he was the one reaching out to an old flame. I was so upset that I decided to go to the concert without telling him. I needed some space to clear my head. The concert was amazing, and for a few hours, I forgot about all the drama. But when I got home, things got even worse. He was waiting for me, furious that I hadn't checked in like I promised. He accused me of cheating and said he knew I hadn't been at the concert because the tracker showed I was somewhere else. I was confused until I realized that I had left my phone at my friend's house before we went to the concert. I had been completely unreachable the whole night. The fight that followed was the worst we've ever had. He called me names, accused me of lying, and said he couldn't trust me. I was so hurt and angry that I packed a bag and went to stay with my best friend for a few days. While I was at my friend's place, I did some thinking. I realized that this relationship was taking a toll on me. I was constantly trying to prove that I was trustworthy, and it was exhausting. I also remembered how, early in our relationship, he would get jealous whenever I mentioned male coworkers or friends. It was a pattern that I had overlooked because I was so in love with him. I also thought about his upcoming bachelor party in Vegas. He had been planning it for months and was so excited. But now, the thought of him going to Vegas while questioning my loyalty felt like a double standard I couldn't ignore. After a few days of space, I went back home to talk to him. I told him that I couldn't be with someone who didn't trust me. I reminded him of all the times I had been there for him, supported him, and been faithful to him. I brought up the Vegas trip and how unfair it was that he could go and have fun while I had to stay home and be monitored. He broke down and apologized. He said he knew he had issues and that he would get help. He begged me not to leave him. I wanted to believe that he could change, but a part of me knew that it might be too late. As for the tracker, he promised to delete it and never do anything like that again. But the damage was done. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and I knew it would take a long time to rebuild the trust that had been broken. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, I found out that the concert ticket had been a gift from one of my new friends. She had won it in a radio contest and wanted to treat me because she knew I loved the band. My boyfriend had always been suspicious of these new friends, but it turned out they were the ones who were there for me when I needed it most. So here I am, a week later, still trying to figure out what to do. I love him, but I don't know if love is enough to fix this. I'm tired of feeling like I have to defend myself all the time. I just want to be able to live my life without feeling guilty for things I haven't done. My boyfriend apologizes for his behavior, but his mom pressures him to dump me. So at a party, he snaps and we break up, and now I'm healing and learning to put myself first. I decided to have a sit-down discussion with him about everything. The comments he makes, our intimacy life, his mom, the way he gets upset when I bring anything up, etc., and I think it went okay. He listened to everything I had to say and apologized for how he has acted. He also gave an honest explanation for why he continues to say that he's gay, which some were right. He just doesn't care to put a label on himself that he knows doesn't matter, but that he will no longer bring it up with people unless it is asked about. He also said that it was hard for him to come to terms with liking a woman, so that's one of the reasons he's reacted in the ways he has. As for the intimacy, he thinks that it is because he is just new to it in general. I am his third intimacy partner, and the first woman intimacy partner with that. He says that he never really thought he'd end up needing to know how to pleasure a woman correctly, but that if I help him with it, he is willing to learn. There was another thing he mentioned as well, but it is extremely personal, and I'm not going to share that information. He did, however, say that I need to learn to cope with the anxiety about him leaving me, and that he is willing to help with that as well. But if I am unable to, he doesn't see how the relationship can continue. I 100% get and respect that, and I will work on it. Thank you all once again. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It's really simple. How is the intimacy? Is it pretty regular? Is he really into it? If the intimacy is rare, you're a close friend. A friend he really loves maybe, but still a friend. If the intimacy is often and passionate and good, well, he's just a bisexual man with a heavy preference towards men. I'm a bisexual man myself with a fairly heavy preference towards women. Because of this, it took me a while to come to terms with the fact that there were some guys I'm really into. Comment 2. Really quickly, I do want to reiterate to people that he does not like to identify with being bi. He tells everyone that he is a gay man. Yes, he shows me affection, but my main issue is when he brings up other men and tells me that he wants to have intimacy with them or be with them. Whether it's a joke or not, I always express my distaste with those comments, to which he tells me that I'm overreacting to the comments. Now for the update. Hey everyone, back with an update on the situation with my boyfriend. A lot has happened in the past month, and I'm still trying to process it all. After our sit-down talk, things were looking up. He was making an effort, and we were communicating better. He even started reading up on how to be more attentive to my needs, and for a while, it seemed like we were on the right track. But then, things took a turn I didn't expect. It started with his mom. Remember how I mentioned she was a bit overbearing? Well, she took it to a whole new level. She showed up at our place unannounced one day, and it was clear she had been crying. She begged him to come back home, saying she couldn't cope without him. It was intense, and I could tell it shook him up. He reassured her he was fine and that he was happy with me, but after she left, he was distant. The next few days were rough. He was quiet, and I could tell something was eating at him. I tried to give him space, but I also didn't want to ignore the elephant in the room. Finally, I asked him what was going on, and that's when he dropped the bombshell. He confessed that his mom had been pressuring him to break up with me. She had found out about our conversation regarding his sexuality and was convinced I was trying to change him. He assured me that wasn't what he believed, but the stress of it all was getting to him. We tried to move past it, but the tension was there. And then came the confrontation that changed everything. One evening, we were at a mutual friend's party. He had been quiet all night, and I could tell he was on edge. Out of nowhere, he got into a heated argument with one of our friends. The friend had made a joke about his sexuality, and he just snapped. It was a side of him I'd never seen before, and it scared me. The room went silent, and everyone was staring. It was one of those jaw-dropping moments you see in movies, but never expect to happen in real life. After the party, we barely spoke. I knew he was embarrassed and angry, and I didn't know how to help. The next day, he told me he needed some time alone to think. I understood, but it felt like a punch to the gut. During that time apart, I did some thinking too. I realized how much of myself I was compromising to make this relationship work. I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying not to upset him or his mom. It wasn't healthy. When we finally met up to talk, it was clear we were both heartbroken. He admitted that he couldn't handle the pressure from his mom and the constant anxiety about his identity. He said he loved me, but he needed to figure himself out without worrying about a relationship. I was devastated, but a part of me knew it was for the best. We decided to break up, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. We had been through so much together, and I truly believed we could overcome anything. But sometimes love isn't enough, and that's a tough lesson to learn. It's been a few weeks since the breakup, and I'm still picking up the pieces. I miss him every day, but I'm also starting to see how much I've grown from this experience. I'm learning to cope with my anxiety and to put myself first. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.